Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode number 20 of the 4-Star Podcast, also known as week 2 of Overreaction. It's going to be Tuesday this week. No Tig, he is doing work-related activities. So it's just going to be me, Nick, and Andrew this week. Yeah, it's classified. Yeah. We're just going to jump right into it and start complaining about the Bears for the second week in a row because other than the first drive, they looked like absolute garbage. Couple points I know we're going to hit on just so I can run through it. Luke Getsy, more questionable play calling. Justin Fields, personally, I think he's just been overcoached, but he had another rough game. Chase Claypool had a touchdown. DJ Moore actually had a few receptions. I think he either got close to or cracked 100 yards receiving. Defense looked good until third down and then would give up 3rd and 12 with ease. So we've got a lot of issues we need to go over here. So I'll let you guys kind of pick and choose where you want to start, and we can jump right in.
Andrew, you should start with the more analytical stuff at first, because I feel like if I start, I'm just going to rant, and we should save me for later. So do we want to start with
for a while?
Do we want to start with the quarterback prospect
that let's get the quarterback thing out of the way, because
do we want to start with our can I swear in this one, our dipshit of an offensive coordinator?
Let's do the quarterback and get that out of the way first, because
okay.
I think that'll lead into the offensive coordinator probably.
Right. Yeah, offensive coordinator.
I think you are allowed to swear in this podcast, though. I think we'll waive the rule
until the Bears get a win.
Which is not going to be coming this week. I'm just previewing that right now. They're not getting one this week.
No,
but yeah, I mean, gosh, where do we even start? Like Justin Fields, man, like. I've been saying it in our group chat, but he's been making me nervous. And I mean, I hate to say that I'm out on the guy because I really liked him as a prospect coming out. I was super excited when they drafted him. And I mean, I was really excited to see where he'd be at this year after they added some actual weapons on the offense for once. But yeah, I mean, I'm getting to the point where I think I'm out. And I'm looking forward to next year's draft, unfortunately, because he's just it's same things we saw last week, right? Like just holding on to the ball too long, not knowing what he's seeing, not being on time. There's numerous examples of open guys down, like the few times that Getsy does scheme guys open, and Justin Fields just isn't seeing it. Yeah, I mean, it's bad right now. Like, he looks really bad. He looks uncomfortable in the pocket. He looks like he doesn't know what he's seeing. I mean, it's the Mitch Nagy conundrum all over again, where you're like, is it the offensive coordinator that's causing the quarterback to be bad? Is the quarterback just not executing it? And the easy answer is, or the most obvious one, is that it's both. And both are just not getting the job done right now.
I think... Not to transition to coordinator and coaching too quickly, but I truly do think that they've coached the Justin out of Justin. I don't want to say I'm out on him yet because, I mean, look at what he was doing at the end of last year when they just let him play ball. I mean, the dude looked like a stud. He kept us close in games we had no business being close in, and I know our record doesn't really reflect much of that from last season, but the talent is there when he's allowed to play his game. But I really do think that by, week 1, okay, be more of a pocket passer. He's thinking too much. He's playing slower because he's having to process. And if they didn't overcoach him to make him have to think and, he was just allowed to react to what he was seeing on the field, yeah, would we get some turnovers? Probably. Then you run into the Jay Cutler, Rex Grossman, chuck the ball downfield, cross your fingers type of thing. But I'd rather be seeing that and taking chances than this. I mean, we had 4 designed quarterback runs. Hi, Misty. We had 4 designed quarterback runs last week. At the end of the game, they called the same screen pass play 3 times in a row after 2 penalties. And the reason, I mean, the Buccaneers, I can't remember which player it was, but one of them come out and flat out said, we knew exactly what was going to be called there. And so that allows you to set up and step right in front of the passing window and pick the ball off at the 5-yard line and walk it in for a score. So I'm certainly not going to sit here and say that Justin Fields is not partially to blame, because like you're saying, I mean, you can see some of those screenshots, and you got DJ Moore wide open running a seam route up the middle of the field. You got to pull the trigger on that. I understand. But at the same time, I think if you're not coaching and calling plays to his strengths, you're forcing him to think more than he ever has before, and that's slowing down his process.
Well, look, he's a quarterback at the NFL level. It doesn't matter like what offense you're in, you're going to have to think. And I think I'm sort of in the middle between you guys. Like I still have hope for Justin, but I am coming to terms with the fact that we may have screwed him up beyond repair at this point. God, it's just so frustrating. Like, yes, Sunday, just a terrible game all around. Took 6 sacks. I put 4 of them on him. The offensive line didn't even play that bad. Andrew does reviews or recaps of the play in the trenches on thebearreport.com. You should go check that out.
Tracking the trenches. Check it out.
Tracking the trenches.
I literally just finished it up actually as we were starting a recording. So.
Yeah, so that should be out soon. But yeah, there was one where I think Braxton Jones got beat. There was another one where I thought Darnell got beat, but really kind of what happened was
Cody got
in the way because Luke Getsy decided to pull him. Trust me, we'll get to Luke Getsy. I want to get to Luke Getsy. But the other one, like he's got plenty of time. He doesn't roll out. There was one particularly bad one where I don't know what the read was on the play, but Roshan Johnson ended up open. Would have been an easy touchdown if he just pulled the trigger. And Justin just kind of stepped up into the pocket and curled into the ball and took a sack. Like this is like you need a bit of gunslinger in you. And like I don't know if he's trusting what he's seeing. I think Jordan, you're right. I do agree that I think they're really put in an emphasis on like coaching and like reading the field. And I think it's just really messing with him too much because it isn't just that, you know, the things that were a problem are still a problem. It's that things that weren't a problem have gotten worse. Like his drop back is slower. His mechanics look worse. It's just a complete mess all around. And I think a lot of that has to do with what he's being coached to do in practice throughout training camp and all of that.
Well, look, there's a part of it where, yeah, I do think the coaching and the offense in general is not helping. Like, especially like, so what was the big narrative last summer when Getsy came in was that he changed up Justin Fields' footwork. So Justin Fields usually had his left foot back, going back all the way to college and high school. And ever since Getsy's taken over, he changed that to where Justin Fields has had his right foot back, and he's kind of changed his drop a little bit. And you can see you compare his drop to the Nagy rookie year under Nagy, and like Justin Fields, you know, it's not a quick drop or anything. He's still pretty deliberate in his drops, but it's a lot snappier. There's a lot shorter drops where he's getting to the top and he's getting the ball out. I mean, it's not quick, but it's faster than what it is right now. And I think there's part of it where, yeah, I think he's thinking about getting the footwork right at times and doing all that. But also, I think part of that is just like that's just who Justin is as a player. Like, even going back to Ohio State, like the book on Justin Fields coming out of Ohio State was that he takes way too damn long holding onto the ball in the pocket, and that his process in the pocket in terms of the drop, the release, waiting for guys to get open instead of anticipating guys getting open before throwing it was all slow compared to what you need to do to be successful at the NFL level. That was the book on Justin Fields. And, you know, the thinking was that he's got all these other physical tools. He's a smart kid. He's a hard worker, that he can work on those things and that you can improve that with the proper coaching at the NFL level, theoretically. My thing is that, like, okay, clearly he's not getting the right coaching for that because it is not getting better. Like, I wouldn't say it's gotten necessarily worse, but it certainly is not getting better, right? But also that I also wonder if that's just who Justin is at this point, and you know, was that something that was always doomed to fail necessarily? Now it could get better over the next few weeks. We'll see. Could just be a first couple rough weeks, but yeah, I mean, clearly Getsy has to do more at getting him involved in the run game, but also like this is tough to like fully gauge because, again, I'm not the biggest X's and O's like expert or anything, but it does seem like defenses have also adjusted to the Justin Fields run game packages and stuff. Like they're playing way more zone coverages instead of man coverages where they have their eyes on him to scramble. They're not biting on any of the read option stuff. Like they're totally waiting on him to pull on bootlegs and all that stuff. So clearly they've adjusted. Defenses have adjusted. Remember, defensive coordinators get paid too, guys. So I mean, it's like they've clearly adjusted. But I mean, I agree. I think Getsy does have to get him more involved, and I guess that can transition us into the let's just crap on Luke Getsy because he's horrible at his job.
Yeah. You think Getsy needs to get it together? I don't think Getsy should have been let back on the plane. I think they should have left him at the airport in Tampa. My God, this is insane. I don't understand what the offensive game plan is with Justin. I get it. You kind of want to see what you have in Justin, but you're doing nothing to help him. And I'm not even just talking about like rolling him out and doing more design runs. Those he should still do, and like not calling screen passes all the time like you have a hard on for it. It's like, okay, this is a team that led the league in rushing last year. They were the best rushing team in football last year, and they are tied for 24th in the league in rushing attempts this year. The rushing attempts have dropped off significantly, not just from Justin Fields, but also the running backs. And I get that you want to see what happens with Justin Fields, but you know, what helps a young quarterback? What helps a quarterback? A good, solid running game that can get you yards and keep the defense honest, so they can't just sit back there. So there's that. There's the fact that he's obsessed with calling these screens, and he's asking players to do things that they're not good to do. Like I get all the Claypool criticism from last week. Claypool had an awful game. To his credit, I actually liked what I saw out of Claypool this week, but he's not good at blocking. Like the effort was better, but he's still not good at blocking. If you're this dead set on calling, like doing a screen game where you're going to have your wide receivers blocking, then why is Equimania St. Brown why has he been inactive for the past 2 weeks? Why is Mercedes Lewis not getting more reps? Like, what? Like,
why is Cole Kmet your blocking tight end? Because that is
exactly.
After watching him the last 2 weeks, he can't block to save his life, or more accurately, the receiver, running back, or quarterback's life.
And then at the end of the game last week, okay, Justin, like he goes 6 for 6 on a drive, gets you a touchdown, gets you right back in the game. You get the ball back, and what do? You call the same screenplay, Jordan. I know you mentioned, but you call the same screenplay 3 straight times. You don't try to disguise it or anything. It's the same personnel. It's the same formation. It's the same damn play. This is the NFL where you dropped on your head as a child, Luke Getsy. I don't understand.
Well, and then I want to harp on Flus a little bit, because he almost threw Justin under the bus. Because
he did.
No, he did throw Justin.
He did throw Justin under the bus, saying that he thought it was a good play call, which no. And then he said that Justin has the ability to change the play at the line if he doesn't like what he sees.
Okay, here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with that. Number one, no, it was not a good play call. Anytime you call the same damn play 3 times in a row, it's not a good play call.
The Buccaneers literally said that they knew the play.
This is the NFL. They knew it was coming. It was not a good play. But at the same time, let's say, okay, if Justin doesn't like it, he can audible out of it. You already know that you have a young quarterback that struggles seeing the field. So you're going to trust him to audible the play and you know if he doesn't audible the play, it's going to be an absolute disaster. Now, I think it's still ultimately on him for throwing the pick. I think it's tough, but I think he's just got to like throw it on the ground.
Yeah, you got to kill it.
Live to fight another day.
Especially the way he threw it too, where he just lobbed it up there. You got to just kill it.
Yeah, no, it was a bad throw, but I put like 95% of the blame on Luke Getsy for that, and then the 5% on Fields, just because
it's ridiculous. You're calling it a screen pass.
Unbelievable. Backed up in your own end zone.
Yep.
And you're making your offensive line like run screen. So they're moving along. I'm losing it, but basically you're making them move more 3 straight plays in a row in the Tampa Heat at the very end of the game. What are we doing? You think your O-line isn't going to be gassed? I hate it.
Yeah,
I hate it.
It's all bad right now. And I mean, there is, what I think is happening is that Luke Getsy knows that they brought in DJ Moore. They've upgraded the talent receiver. So I think he wants to, show that off a little bit, because last year they played things so close to the chest from a passing game standpoint.
Then throw to him. Stop.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Calling screens.
Okay. I get that, Nick. But DJ Moore is open on a lot of these plays where he's in the progression and Justin Fields just isn't throwing him the ball. So that's on Justin Fields too.
I'm
when
not
DJ Moore is open, you got to throw him the ball.
Okay,
he's open a lot.
I agree with you there.
But I mean, I'm not going to absolve. Certainly not going to absolve Getsy of anything. I think it's a joke. The way this and also like you talked about like execution being a problem here. That's on coaching too. Like what's the whole point? Like the whole part of the hits philosophy that Eberflus keeps on preaching here. Right? He hasn't preached it as much this year, but he preached it all last offseason. Is that your teams are going to be playing discipline and playing smart football. Well, it's not smart football when you got guys running to the same spots, running the same routes, guys missing the blocking assignments. Like that's on the coaching. And if the guys on the field aren't going to be executing that stuff, then you got to put guys on the field that are. Like Nick said, like why is and again, Equanimeous St. Brown is not a good NFL wide receiver, but he does one thing really well. And he's a very good blocker, and you know he's going to execute his assignments with that. So for that at least, you can put him on the field for that. I agree. Like I think it's ridiculous at this point that we're at this point again, and it's going to get worse because you got Kansas City coming up, and
it's not like we have an easy schedule.
No, it can get like really bad here. And the thing is, we've already heard the rumblings that things are getting like really testy in Hallis Hall right now. Like it's full on survival mode in that building. And we've heard that like on Twitter, we've seen that been reported, I guess, if you want to call the Bears blog a inside reporter. He's usually got some pretty good info, I will say. I don't know why people in that building keep feeding him info, because he's definitely not going to like keep that close to the chest. He's definitely going to put it out there. But I mean, he's got good info in the past, and so far, like it's rough. I know we got to get to the defense here. So
yeah, let's transition to the defense a little bit. Before we harp on it too much, I do want to say I think it was still bad. Don't get me wrong, still bad. But I think it was a big improvement with Flus calling the plays versus Alan Williams calling the plays overall.
You still let Baker Mayfield torch you. Like that's just an excuse.
It wasn't as bad as it could have been. But
it's still bad. It's still bad. I'm still. So the Bears have lost 12 straight games. Going back, they haven't won a game since before Elon Musk bought Twitter and renamed it X. And they've given up 25 points, at least 25 points in every single one of those games. They're the only team in NFL history to do that. And as Andrew said, they have the Chiefs next week. It's probably going to be the case again. They're probably going to put up a lot of points, and they're probably going to
get absolutely murdered. I'm kind of glad that I have a baby shower to go to, so I don't have to watch this game this week.
Yeah, it's tough. So I don't know if
oh my God, I should have looked at this.
What'd you look at?
As a team in our 2 games this season, how many sacks do we have?
1. Ngakoue got 1.
Yeah, 1 in 2 weeks. That's disgusting.
And Ngakoue was in the backfield like a couple of times. He had Baker dead to rights and just didn't finish. You're paid to do one thing, and that's put the quarterback on the ground. Just put it on the ground. Just put him on the ground. It's not hard.
Yeah, I mean, like they got pressure. I think a lot more in this game than they did last week. Like, I mean, it's easy to say because they got like zero pressure against the Packers, but they were getting to Baker Mayfield, here and there at least. And like you said, like they just couldn't finish. They couldn't get him on the ground. It was ridiculous. But like this defense is just like, what does Matt Eberflus do here? Because clearly he's doing nothing to make the offense better, because that's just a train wreck in and of itself. But as a defensive-minded head coach, he did a much better job, I think. And hopefully Alan Williams, whatever's going on, with his personal issues, what they said it is, like I hope everything's okay with him first of all. But from a football standpoint, like the play calling, I felt like was a bit better from Eberflus. Like clearly, Eberflus has a better feel for when to call pressure packages, when to blitz, when to mix things up in coverages and whatnot. Like you could see that, but it still didn't like work or anything because, like you said, like Baker was still they were getting whatever they wanted in the passing game. The run game was still getting going for the Buccaneers as well. Like there isn't talent on this defense to be able to play this really soft, really just very, I don't know what you call it, just a defense that they don't try to hit you in the mouth with anything. They just play back. They play that stupid Tampa 2 that's been outdated for over a decade now. And offenses have known the code on how to break the cover 2 for years. And you saw that. Like the Bears players are playing grass, not players, and guys are getting wide open against them. And this has been a regular thing ever since this regime took over.
And that's what I was saying last week too, is we have big physical cornerbacks, not small, speedy cornerbacks. We are playing small, speedy cornerback defense with the wrong type of player.
Right.
And it's not working. I mean, these are the guys that should be jamming at the line of scrimmage, slowing that play down, giving the defensive line a little bit better opportunity. Since we don't have a lot of talent, buying them a little more time to get to the quarterback to, get some pressures, sacks, hurry throws. Yeah. But
like one play in particular that like really shows the issue with this defense is it was the big play, not the one where Mike Evans clearly pushed off on Eric Stevenson, but it was the other Mike Evans big play where he broke the tackle and made that big play down the sideline. Like you can clearly see they're playing Tampa 2 on that play. Jalen Johnson, it was on Jalen Johnson. Like you can tell that he's being coached to play his zone and play grass and not play the man. Whereas in a lot of defenses now, it's more man match where you pick up the guy that goes in your zone and you're basically playing man coverage. The Bears don't do that. They just play space. They don't play the man. So what does Mike Evans do? He sees that Jalen Johnson isn't guarding him, isn't looking his way. Jalen Johnson's playing the line of scrimmage. Mike Evans just goes vertical and he's wide open, right? Like that's the problem with this style of defense. You can't run it anymore. Offenses are too good. They're too smart. They're going to pick that apart all day if you have a competent quarterback. And Baker Mayfield, he's not good by any means, but he's at least competent, right? And he's going to pick you apart. He's an NFL quarterback. That's what I'm saying. And yeah, it's just a lot better. Like they only gave up 20 points. So I guess if you're looking for a positive, they were able to keep them out of the end zone for the most part. But like against a team like the Chiefs where Patrick Mahomes is just going to dice you up, like it's not going to work like that. They're gonna really run up and down the field on them, I think.
Hey, before we get into our next thing, do we want to do guess the line now for
let's do
Chiefs
that
game? I feel like this is a good point to do that. So so if you listen to Bill Simmons' podcast, he and Cousin Sal do this thing, the podcast every week where they look at the NFL games and they try to guess what the betting line is going to be. So none of us have looked at the line yet. We're just going to guess how much the Chiefs are going to be favored by. Let's be honest. So Ty guessed that the Chiefs would be favored by 27.5. Jordan, you guessed the same thing. Andrew, you guessed 19.5. I guess 17.5 because I feel like with these betting lines at the NFL level, you really don't see those like over 20-point lines. Those are really rare.
Well, we will now, baby. Let's go.
All right. The Chiefs are favored by 12.5. Go bet your money on the Chiefs. Cover.
Yep.
Bet your money on the Chiefs.
I'm putting my money on the Chiefs.
I haven't done sports betting in a while, but that's a freaking gimme.
That is too easy. That is
like not only do the Chiefs need a get right game, and the Bears are a perfect defense to be a get right game, but this is Nagy revenge game. And you know that Patrick Mahomes, apparently him and Nagy are best buds. Like Mahomes is going to come out unconscious in this game. I just know it.
That's too low. I thought it would be at least 3 scores.
I really, legitimately, I wasn't bullshitting when I did that 27.5. I really do think the Chiefs are going to beat us by 4 touchdowns. I think it's going to be like a 42-14 type of game. And
Chris Jones is back on that D line too. That's
Chris Jones is back. Travis Kelce's back. It's not going to be pretty. It's really, really not going to be pretty.
So when the Bears inevitably fall to 0-3, should Flus and Poles be fearing for their jobs?
I think they already are.
You think they already are?
They already are. It's panic mode in that building. It has to be.
George McCaskey showed up to the building before they flew out to Tampa, and had a surprise meeting with everybody. They're already on the hot seat. And if they aren't already on the hot seat, they better push that button and get the seat going to warm it up. Because, again, you hedged all your bets on Justin Fields. You come out, you can't coach him properly. You can't develop him properly. And, honestly, the McCaskies should be on the hot seat because they
should have been on the hot seat for like 2 decades.
They've been on that.
They've been on the hot. They should have.
If you could fire the owner, they did.
Seriously, and not to blame Virginia, because at 98, 99 years old, I can't imagine she really has much going on involvement-wise. I mean, other than cheering for and complaining about decisions that are made on her behalf. But clearly, we have a development problem. Jay Cutler was very promising when he came over, and we kind of ruined him. I can't think of any other solid quarterback we've had other than Jay Cutler. Rex Grossman, yeah, we went 13-3, but that's because that was the second best Bears defense that's ever existed. You can't tell me we won because of Rex Grossman. We won in spite of Rex Grossman on a lot of occasions. Shout out to that game against I think it was the Vikings. No.
Cardinals.
No, I was going to say the one.
Oh, the one where you actually played good?
No. It was the one where both quarterbacks had a passer rating of like 10 or less, and we won. I know that happened. I can't remember.
Well, you got to say which one, because that's just a normal Bears game, baby.
Yeah.
No. I mean, the other team, too, had like that low of a passer rating.
That sounds so much like
I want to say it was a game against Brett Favre. So but I thought we had gotten rid of Grossman by 2009 when Favre went to the Vikings.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was – anyway, regardless. We clearly have a problem developing quarterback talent or spotting quarterback talent. Again, we've had one good quarterback in the entire time any of us have been alive, but
people still argue about whether or not he's good.
Right.
Yeah, and we've had at least – because, again, I can't think back to when I was 4 years old how the draft went, but – we've had 2 top 5 quarterback draft picks that are one definitely was a bust, and another one is trying to show us that he's not a bust right now. So not only do we have a coaching problem and a football operations problem, I really do think we have an ownership problem where they struggle to find the right people to fill these positions, and that's really what's coming back to bite us.
I mean, yeah, it's obviously an ownership problem. It's been an ownership problem, ever since George McCaskey took over. And look, he's a nice guy. I feel like he has the best intentions at heart, but I just don't think he knows how to run, a successful sports organization. I think the Kevin Warren hire does add some legitimacy, and I hope that definitely plays out. But we'll see. I'll say on the subject again of Flus and Poles, I'll say this real quick. Flus and this entire coaching staff, they should be on the hot seat for the rest of the year. Like, if you had a more strong-willed owner, I don't even know if these guys make it through the season.
Well, here's the thing. They redid the hierarchy in the offseason after they hired Kevin Warren. I believe Warren's the top guy. Poles reports directly to him. Mm-hmm. So Warren can pull the trigger on it. I'm sure,
Yeah, he didn't hire Ryan Poles. Ryan Poles is not his GM.
Right. He didn't hire Ryan Poles. Yeah. And what I'm curious about is will Poles fire Eberflus to try to save his job? I don't know if he will, but
I think that's the first domino.
Yeah, that's
the first domino in all this. Yeah. And I think Ryan Poles legitimately could. And honestly, I don't think it'd be a good idea to fire. Even though I haven't been overly impressed with Ryan Poles, I don't think it would be a good idea to fire him right as of yet. Because one, I don't think he wanted Eberflus. I think it was an arranged marriage. Personally, that's just the vibe I get from the entire thing. But also, like, clearly Ryan Poles has taken a long-term approach with building this roster. Like, he has set this team up where they've got all this cap space, going forward for them in the future. They have all these draft picks that Ryan Poles has acquired going into the future with the future 2 first-round picks next year, 2 second-round picks next year, in the year after that. Like, Ryan Poles has clearly set this up, and he could argue to the McCaskies that, look, Justin Fields, he did not draft him. He clearly set up where he wanted Justin Fields to prove it to him, and he gave him a supporting cast to prove it to him. And he could say, look, give me a chance to get the next guy. We have all these resources available to us. This is going to be my third year building this team. Now I have the resources available to me to really go to town on this roster here and, see where this thing goes. And I can get an offensive coach in here to build around the next quarterback here.
Cough, cough, Eric Bieniemy, cough, cough.
Eric Bieniemy, Ben Johnson. There's a lot of guys. I mean, there's a lot of guys I would really like to bring in here. But I honestly, like, the more I think about it, again, I'm not a huge Ryan Poles guy, but I think you got to let him see through this rebuild here because they're not done yet with the rebuild. There's still warts all over the roster, and I can question why there's warts all over the roster still. There's still holes, the defensive line, offensive line, there's still some issues there, but he has made some good moves. He does have them set up really well long-term. I think from a GM standpoint, you got to let it play out.
I'm with you. I think he should be on the hot seat, and you should have a very serious conversation with him about what he's anticipating happening in the next year or two. I don't think you fire him, though. I think you let him know, like, hey, man, you're on thin ice. Don't screw up. But I would like to give him an extra year or two. But if we have another year this year like we did last year, you got to get rid of Flus and bring in an offensive-minded coach. I mean, we've been talking about doing that. I think we were all surprised when they hired Flus because he's a defensive-minded head coach, because defense has never really been our biggest issue. So
look, they hired Matt Eberflus because he's a Tampa 2 disciple. They just wanted somebody who reminded them of Lovey after Nagy burned them. That's what this was. And it's backfired in their face because you can't be running that stuff in today's NFL. You got to go offense, and that's just the way it is.
Well, with all that being said, I think it's time we move on to our other disappointment of the week, the Chicago Cubs. The Bears, as we've been saying, are going to be playing the Chiefs this week, and I am not looking forward to that. But Cubs had a really rough week. They were doing good based on my end-of-season record prediction, and then totally, pardon the language, but shit the bed. I don't think there's any better way to put it. Lost 2 out of 3 in Colorado against the Rockies. And then Nick and I got to witness firsthand part of the sweep by the Diamondbacks. Cubs are currently, last time I checked, they were up, I think, 4-1 against Pittsburgh right now. But as it sits before today's games all finish up, the Cubs were tied for the 3rd wild card spot.
They were not tied because Miami holds the tiebreaker. So they were technically out of a playoff spot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, winning percentage wise, tied for that last spot. Miami has a tiebreaker. So that was rough.
It was very rough. Justin Steele's terrible start. He gives up 6 runs. The Cubs can't.
And of course, that's the one we see. It's literally his worst start of the season. I've
been to Justin Steele's last 2 starts. Now, the one before this, he pitched really well. I think it was 7 innings of 1-run ball. I probably mentioned it last week. The offense just couldn't do anything. And same story here. Offense couldn't do anything. Again, but at least like last week, it was up against Merrill. We got swept by the Diamondbacks, and we didn't face Zach Gallen or Merrill Kelly.
No, I don't even know who do we have? Fat. PFAADT is the spelling of the last name, but he had a 6.35 ERA going into the game, and we didn't score any runs until you and I blew out of there at the end of the 8th inning. So
we did not watch the Cubs score any runs in Chase Field because we left after the 8th.
Well, and then we were talking about going to the game on Sunday, and then the game Saturday happened that we lost, and we're like, okay, no, we're not going to set ourselves up for disappointment. And then lo and behold, they disappointed us anyway, and we weren't even there. So
I feel like this has happened so many times with the Cubs this year, where I'll look at a pitching matchup or whatever. It's like, oh, this pitcher's got a really high ERA. I haven't heard of this guy. He's having a rough season. This should be a good, get right game for the Cubs. And then they make him look like Clayton Kershaw out there. I don't understand it.
Somebody else said that on Twitter too. It's not just you thinking it. It seems like anytime the Cubs should put up 8-9 runs, they don't. When they're not supposed to, they do.
Well, that's just because this team just doesn't make any sense.
No,
in any aspect. Like all year long, this team has never made any sense.
What I will say is, at this point, it's not like I'm resigned to us missing the postseason, because the postseason is still very
Very much attainable.
It's very, very much attainable. I think at the beginning, everyone's like reasonable expectation and hope was that we'd be playing meaningful games in September. The games are pretty meaningful, which is good. I think it's a bit disappointing considering the start we had and how hot the Cubs were before this really cold stretch. They're 2-8 in their last 10. You really hope that they get it right. I think I've got 12 games left before the season ends.
Yeah, so we have 3 games in Pittsburgh. Or no, we're at home. Sorry. 3 games at home against Pittsburgh. Then the Rockies come into town. Then we get an off day. And then we're on the road at Atlanta and Milwaukee to finish out the year.
Oh, that's great. That's exciting.
I'm like totally torn because, I mean, like you're saying, if you go back 20 weeks to when we first started this podcast and we're focusing on the Cubs and how rough a time they were having, it was like, oh my God, I really wanted to see, like you're saying, I want to see meaningful baseball in September. And then they did so good during the summer that I hate to say it, but the goalposts moved. Mm-hmm. It got to the point where it was going to be a disappointment if we didn't make the postseason. So it's hard to measure expectations just based on how they've been playing. But at this point, again, to go from 4.5 games up in the wild card standings and a game and a half behind Milwaukee for the division lead to one team you should have just smacked the crap out of and another team you should have at least taken 1 or 2 from, it's not a good look, and it's happening at the exact wrong time. I did look, we're up 5-1 in the 6th against Pittsburgh. So at least the ship is starting to get righted a little bit. Hopefully we can build some momentum going into Atlanta and Milwaukee. But yeah, it's going to be a tough, close stretch here at the end, and I think we're all going to need to monitor our blood pressure for the next couple of weeks.
You're
gonna have to sweat it out for these next couple of weeks.
It is nice that baseball means something this late in the season, though.
It does.
Yeah,
it is kind of nice.
Yeah, I just wish they didn't start sucking right at the beginning of football season because, at least it would have been like sadness and happiness kind of balance it out. Now it's just like
we're just compounding the misery.
Time. Exactly. A little bit of good news though. One thing. I think you actually got up to go to the bathroom when it happened.
I did.
But Marcus Stroman came in from the bullpen. So he is back off of the injured list. I'm going to stress it. The IL. He's agreed that he doesn't need to pitch in the rotation. He just wants to do whatever he can to help this team win going into the postseason, which I think is a really good attitude to have. I really do think he's going to pick up. I mean, again, with him having missed half the season with these injuries, he's going to pick up his player option. He'd be kind of dumb not to, I think. So, we have one more spot in the rotation short up. Hopefully he can stay a little bit healthier next year. But it's definitely good to have him back going into this last stretch. And solid move by the Cubs. They're skipping over Jamison Tyon's spot in the rotation because we just had the off day yesterday. So I think it was Assad that started today. Mm-hmm. But Tyon's been kind of hit or miss there as well lately. Yeah, back to his old ways. So,
yeah.
Will, anything else we want to cover with the Cubs or
gotta get some W's?
Pray to whoever you got to pray to and cross your fingers, toes, whatever you can to get us into the playoffs and make this wild card. So with that being said, we actually do have Blackhawks news. I almost forgot. Nick has a couple things to go over with the Blackhawks. We're just going to kind of get through it real quick.
Yeah. So this has been a pretty eventful weekend for the Blackhawks. Training camp starts tomorrow. So Kyle Davidson spoke with the media today. Before we get into what Kyle Davidson said, because he did say some pretty interesting things, I would be remiss if I did not mention that a bunch of the Hawks prospects played in the Tom Curver's Prospect Showcase, which is basically just like an exhibition game between, prospects from, I think they played the Blues and then they played the Minnesota Wild, their prospects. So you got to see some of the Hawks prospects, Kevin Korchinski, the D prospect, and of course, Connor Bedard. And that was really the big story. In the first game against the Blues, he only played against the Blues. He had a hat trick. He had 3 goals in a 5-0 win because, of course, he did. And if you watch those goals, it's clear. Like,
they were nasty.
It's clear he's already an NHL level talent. Like, he'll step on the ice tomorrow. Like, he's an NHLer. He's just so much better than all the prospects. Like, he's not a prospect. I mean, he is a prospect, but he's NHL ready.
He's gonna be on the ice opening day.
He looks damn good.
Some of those goals were filthy, man.
There was one where he was basically parallel with the goal and still found a way to get it in the back of the net. So
it is not an exaggeration to say that he's going to step on the ice in his first game and have one of the best shots in the league. It's not an exaggeration.
I would agree.
It's insane. So anyway, that's just a fun little piece of news. Kyle Davidson spoke with me today. Training camp starting tomorrow, like I mentioned. A few interesting notes that I had. He confirmed that the Blackhawks are not going to be going with a captain this year. He's going to have a bunch of alternate captains. He said part of the reason was, just kind of respect for Jonathan Taves. Go a year without a captain after, having a captain that was so iconic and so beloved by the franchise for so long. But also he wants to give the opportunity to players to step up, is what he said, and see who emerges as leader. Really, what I think it is like, okay, Bedard, you're the captain next year.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's not like Bedard isn't a leader. Like, he's like Kyle Davidson has said like multiple times, he's been so impressed by the maturity and everything from Connor Bedard. He's already like a true professional. So, yeah. So that's one piece of news. Second piece of news that he said that I thought was really interesting is that he said that Lukas Reichel going forward is going to play center. He got some time in the NHL last year. He mainly played as a winger, and he said Reichel's been working on faceoffs and defense in the offseason. I find this really interesting because I did not expect that they would go this route with him. I thought they would just keep him on the wing, eventually move him up to Bedard's line. I do find it interesting, especially because he got Frank Nazar coming up. He's another center prospect. He should be up maybe next year, a year or two. Oliver Moore, who they just drafted. Like, I guess you're not going to see those guys for a while. It's not bad to have a lot of guys that can play center. Center depth is important. I did see, I don't know who this was, but I did see someone mention that this could be sort of a contingency plan to build center depth if they decide to move Connor Bedard to the wing. So I find that pretty interesting. But at a minimum, you're getting Lukas Reichel experience at center. I think it'll be valuable. See what you got in them. And the last piece of news is that concerning prospect I mentioned earlier, Kevin Krasinski. He was first round pick 2 drafts ago, 2021. The one we traded, he was the pick in the DeBrincat trade. He spent last year in the WHL with Seattle. And there's a question of whether or not the Hawks are going to send him back there for the full year or give him some time with the NHL. It's important because if he spends any time with the NHL team, they have to sign him to his entry-level deal and burn the first year off of that. But he said nothing's off the table. So he might be around for training camp and then they'll send him back to Seattle. They might, they might give him like half the season here, half the season over there, or he might just stay in the NHL. But they do believe in him. So I think that's a good development. First preseason game is next Thursday on the 28th. Training camp opens tomorrow. It's about all I got.
I got one thing that I just thought of when we were talking.
Yeah.
I can't remember where I saw it, but I know for a fact I saw it and it was not a fever dream. The Blackhawks said that it is a matter of when, not if, they will be bringing back the black third sweater.
Oh, let's go.
Great look. I love that look. The second they release it, I'm going to be buying one because I have a problem. But exciting development, in my opinion, because I love the alternate black sweaters. So
cool. All
right. Well, I guess we'll do one more week of reminding people, but we're going to move on to our complete 180s because the 4 stars of the week, which I don't even know if anybody's deserving of a star this
no
week,
one.
But Connor Bedard.
It's Connor Bedard.
Connor Bedard, you get all 4 stars, but we'll probably come up with something a little better. But that's moved over to a blog post. I forgot to mention last week that I updated my Bears record prediction. Surprise, it sucks. But if you really are a masochist and want to look over that, I was only 1 point off in my Buccaneers Bears prediction. I would like to stay. I had said 28-17 and it was 27-17. So apparently I know what I'm talking about if you want to go check that out. Anyway, blog posts, website, 4starpodchi.com. Andrew, the floor is yours for the next 3 minutes.
All right. Well, speaking of football, I want to talk about Monday Night Football game that happened last night, where I swear, like, what type of witchcraft does Mike Tomlin keep on doing where he can pull out some of these ugly Steelers wins where they look like they have never, no one on that team looks like they know how to play football, yet they somehow win these games. So for those who don't know, Mike Tomlin, coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, has never had a losing season in his coaching career with the Steelers. It's the most guaranteed 8-8 team you're going to get every single year at minimum with him as your head coach, no matter what the circumstance. It doesn't matter if you have Duck Hodges at quarterback, which he did have for a season. He still got 8 wins with that team. Doesn't matter. He's had bad defenses before, still gets 8 wins at least. He's had horrific offenses, which he has right now. Kenny Pickett can't throw a football, and he still found a way to win this game. To put in perspective, and Big Titty Mitch.
It wasn't Big Titty Mitch.
Kissing titties, Mitch.
Yeah, it was kissing.
Mitch did not have the. All right.
Anyway, we're getting off topic here. To put in perspective how bad the Steelers' offense was last night, they had -7 yards in the fourth quarter. They were losing going into the fourth quarter, and they won. Like, how does that happen? The Pittsburgh Steelers defense outscored the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, and they won. They had 2 touchdowns, defensive touchdowns in this game. Like, the Steelers offense looks like they didn't know what they were doing the entire game. They were getting dominated the entire game. I don't know how Mike Tomlin continues to do this. And it's not like he's a flawless head coach either. Like, he had a really bad challenge in this game that he should not have thrown the challenge flag on. The Steelers had multiple issues getting guys on and off the field between special teams and defense. Like, they had some really bad moments there from an execution standpoint. He still employs Matt Canada as his offensive coordinator for some reason, which, to put in perspective, like, Matt Canada is like 10 times worse of an offensive coordinator than Luke Getsy. Like, he's that bad. He should be doing offensive coordinator, maybe being an offensive coordinator in college. I don't even know if he'd get a job at this point in college, but definitely not an NFL offensive coordinator. And he somehow got the job there still, even though he was terrible last year. So hats off to Mike Tomlin. He beat the Cleveland Browns last night, which we all thank you for. Nobody wants to see the Cleveland Browns have any success this year because of he who shall not be named at quarterback, by the way, got in trouble putting his hands where they shouldn't have been and lying about it last night multiple times, by the way, something he's really accustomed to. But I mean, look, like I said before, congrats to Mike Tomlin. The Steelers are 1-1, even though they should be 0-2. And this team should be a top 5 pick next year's draft. They're probably going to win 10 games probably just because that's what Mike Tomlin does.
And thoughts and prayers to Nick Chubb, who had
absolutely.
Every time it pops up on my Twitter, I have never scrolled faster in my life because I don't want to see it.
Yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to say. Like, to everyone complaining about how the TV broadcast didn't show the injury. No. And to all the accounts that were showing that on Twitter, like, I get it. Like, I looked at it when it came across my feed. It's a horrific injury, and it could be a career ender, which is really sad because Nick Chubb, he's one of the best, if not the best running back in football right now. But yeah, man, like, have some respect for the player. Like, if the TV broadcast isn't showing you the replay, it's because it's that bad and you don't want to see it.
At least mark it like not safe for work or something. So you have to actually click the thing. Yeah. I thought that's where you were going with it when you started.
I was going back and forth on it, but
yeah. Because
Mike Tomlin devil magic.
Because the last 4 Monday Night Football, it's Rodgers' knee injury,
Achilles. Rodgers'
the Achilles injury. The one where DeMar Hamlin died.
Hamlin.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and then there's one more.
There's another one too. Yeah, just
who's
crazy
the
string of.
What's the Monday Night Football matchup this upcoming week?
That's a great question. I have no idea.
Let's look it up real quick
right.
before we get to.
We got minutes. Opening my NFL app right now. Shout out NFL app, even though it's absolute garbage, because it asked me to buy NFL Plus every single time.
So we got two games. It's Philly versus Tampa, and then the Rams versus the Bengals.
Would it be disrespectful to put a bet on which player's going to get it?
Yes,
that's something horrific is going to happen.
It's going to be Jalen Carter because, of course, or Jalen Hurts. I mean, because of course it is. But and nothing against Jalen Hurts at all. He's a great quarterback. I have nothing bad to say about him. I just mean, like, given the string of who has gotten hurt, that's the one that it makes sense with the trajectory we're going. But anyway, I digress. In slightly more positive news, I'm going to do a top 5 list this week for my 180 because those seem to have been very popular the last few weeks among us. Obviously, you know, the NFL is known for doing throwback uniforms. The Bears had their 1930s throwbacks, the 1946 Monsters, the Midway throwbacks, which I think are some of the cleanest throwbacks that have come out. The Steelers always do the ugly bumblebee ones. The Titans, like I know this season they're doing Houston Oilers throwbacks. The Eagles are doing Kelly Green. So throwbacks are huge in the NFL. And they were for a little bit in MLB, but they really haven't been lately. And so I wanted to go over some of my favorite throwbacks that I think the MLB should do. And I know, you know, you can say, oh, they do the City Connect. And like, yeah, some of them look good. Some of them really don't look good. So this would just be a little more consistent, get some fan favorites. I'm going to warn you, the first two are pretty biased. Let me start sharing my screen here.
Sorry if you're listening and can't watch any of these.
Yeah.
This is not going to be that interesting.
No, I will describe it, but okay. Let me know, is it working?
Yeah,
yes.
There we go.
Okay, so the first one, the mid-'80s dark blue Cubs pullovers. I think it's a super clean look. You get the Angry Bear logo on the sleeve. Love it. Definitely think that one should come back. Next. Okay, hold on. I got to figure out how to do this. Okay.
You can watch Jordan try to figure out technology here.
Yeah.
This is why you watch on YouTube.
Technology. It's riveting stuff. Next up is going to be the Cubs powder blue throwbacks. I'm a sucker for powder blue, whether it's the Cubs, well, and especially these with the pinstripes. I think the pinstripes are an interesting look. But whether it's the Blue Jays, the Royals, the Cubs, the Phillies, and then don't hate me too much for this. I really do like the Cardinals powder blue uniforms. I do. I hate to admit it, but I do. They're good. Powder blue is an awesome look. Super retro. I think the Cubs powder blue pinstripe look needs to make a comeback. Next up, this one I'm going to admit, a little bit controversial. I don't mean for it to be, and I have a solution because it's a really cool uniform, but we're going to go with the Cleveland Guardians. I'm not going to say the old name. The colors look good. The font looks good. You can get rid of the bad logo on the sleeve and replace it with the new G. But Cleveland 1980s uniforms, you get the Ricky Vaughn references with Major League, which is an awesome, hilarious baseball movie. I think it's a clean look. You just got to update it because they've become a modern baseball team that doesn't have a racist name anymore. But I think you can still just change the name and the logo and you're fine. Let's see. Next, we're going to go with another Chicago team. The White Sox red throwback uniforms. Now I know what you're thinking. It looks just like the black White Sox uniforms. And you're right. But red is cool because it's colorful. So I think they should. And I know they've done that throwback in the past, but definitely I would be okay with making that more of a regular staple. And then last up, going to take a page out of the Titans book and go with a team that doesn't technically exist anymore, the Nationals could do a Montreal Expos throwback. I already admitted I'm a sucker for powder blue, so there you go, more powder blue. But honestly, the Expos had some really cool uniforms back in the day. So I think that'd be a good way to go. And those would be my top 5 baseball throwbacks that I think need to make a comeback.
All right. My turn.
Yep.
I regret to inform you that the dumbest rule in all of sports made a comeback on Thursday Night Football last week. So Vikings receiver Justin Jefferson was reaching for a touchdown, and he lost control of the ball and fumbled the ball out of the back of the opposing end zone. And if you're not familiar with football, then I don't know what you're doing listening to this podcast. It would be very I don't know what you're doing. But basically that resulted in a touchback for the other team. So the Vikings, even though they were as close as you can possibly get to scoring a touchdown without scoring, they lost the ball, and their opponent got the ball like 20 yards in the other direction from where they lost the ball. And I just think this is the dumbest, it's such a dumb rule. Like if you fumble a ball out of bounds anywhere in the field without a clear recovery by the defense, you just get the ball back where it fumbled. And like, that's easy. And if you fumble it out of the back of your own end zone, well, then that's just a safety because you were dumb. That should never happen unless there are catastrophic circumstances. But if you're just reaching to try and score, something that happens all the time, and you lose control of the ball, I get that it means you want to hold on to the ball. But how about this? How about you get the ball back where you lost control of it? Or how about you get the ball, even if you get the ball back, if you want to be punished for not holding on to the ball a little bit, like get the ball back at the 10 or whatever. But it's like at the 10, so you have to, 10 yards, goal to go or whatever. But I just think it's such a stupid, and normally I don't complain about rules favoring the defense because I think way too many rules these days favor the offense, and it makes it impossible to play defense sometimes. But this rule's stupid. That's all.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Like it's the dumbest rule in the sport. Like, like you kind of pointed out, like the fact that if you fumble it and it goes out of bounds anywhere else in the football field, you just get the ball back at that spot or where you fumbled it, I think, and you just play on. And for all those people on Twitter who are just like, well, don't fumble the ball, you don't have to worry about it. Why are you trying to make a play?
Okay, well, if that's the case, then why don't we do this? Anytime you fumble, if you did this, like where anytime you fumble the ball and it goes out of the end zone, the defense, like the other team gets it. That would at least be consistent. I think that's dumb, but that would at least be consistent. This is just like randomness for the sake of randomness, and I hate it.
It's tradition. I'm kidding.
Well, my favorite play ever with this rule, I'll never forget this. Best part of the John Fox era with the Bears, where he challenged the play where we had a Bears running back. I forget who the name of the guy is. He wasn't definitely not on the team now, obviously, but reach for the goal line, and John Fox challenged the spot because he was ruled short. Challenged the spot to say that he scored a touchdown on the play, and the refs end up reversing the rule where they saw that he fumbled into the end zone, and John Fox, instead of getting the touchdown his way, created a touchback turnover going the other way because that's what John Fox at that era of Bears football was.
Was it Jeremy Langford? Was he the running back?
I don't know if it was Jeremy Langford. I think it's sort of like a Benny or something like that.
Benny Cunningham.
Benny Cunningham, I think. Yeah. Just hilarious all time.
God,
and if you don't like that, you don't like Chicago Bears football.
The amount of terrible Bears offensive football players that are just ingrained in our brains. It's sad.
It's a tradition like no other.
I don't like it.
Well, I think that's a pretty good spot to end. As good as any. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out the website, 4starpodchi.com, for our blog posts. We have our new episodes going up there, links to anything and everything your little heart could ever desire. Check us out on Twitter at 4starpodchi. You can follow Nick on there at Endicola21. I know he's not here, but you can follow Ty at TM Mullen 007. You can follow Andrew at AJ Freeman 25. Again, he has other work on the Bear Report at 247sports.com, which is where you can find the offensive line grades. What was it again? Tracking the trenches. Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yep.
So honestly, he does really great breakdown and analysis there. I'd check it out. And he's also got the Picks for Polls podcast. Thank you all for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that fun stuff so we can build the channel a little bit. And we'll be back here again next week, ranting and raving. Once again, probably ranting a little more than raving, but as always, make sure you have a good one.